Hey, how you doing? I thought I would discuss out of control D&D players. I happen to have a lot of them. Um, well, first off, I'd like to talk about things you could do to really reduce the stress of people walking about and not really paying attention to what's going on to your D&D campaign. Sometimes it makes you feel being the DM not really left out, but like no one really cares, no one really understands your story. And then at times when you're like, oh, here's this person before that you don't really know about because you never really pay attention, then you really feel like the whole thing is for no reason. That happens quite a bit where a player meets someone or has to deliver a message to someone and they can't really remember what it was, but it's not because they can't simply remember, it's because they didn't write it down and because they weren't really paying attention in the first place. People get too distracted with things like drawing at the table, getting up, going to the kitchen. Most of all, that's my biggest problem. People go into your kitchen, can't really, they can't really sit down for a long time. And another thing is players talking with players, but about things that aren't about D&D or Star Wars or your modern D20 campaigns, anything like that. Some people just don't like to listen. So, I thought of some ways you could, along with the book, I read the book on what you're really supposed to do. They have a whole section on how to really keep your characters really in tune into the story and how to get them to really pay attention. Some of them were very simple. Some of them were kind of more complex, and they only work if you really have a bigger party, not so much with just one or two players. But some of them were, the main one was have something that each of your players can do that constantly makes them have to pay attention to the story. Maybe not so much the story, but just to keep them distracted from what's going on in the kitchen, what's going on in the bedroom, what's going on, in the bathroom, I don't even know, whatever's going on. Things like, one of your players, you assign them to keep track of initiatives. So every single time you're in a battle, this person's going to have to write down their initiatives. When you're in battle every single turn, I'm going to ask you, whose turn is it? Who's in the initiative order? Who's next? Who does this? Who's doing that? What order are these things in? What order are the monsters in? How many monsters are there? What are the monsters? Stuff like that that really is going to have to keep them paying attention the entire time. Now, another thing is you want to eliminate the problems themselves, eliminate the distractions themselves. Definitely, you never, only if you need to, have your session at a high locomotion area. Like, in my apartment, my dining room is the same room as the kitchen, as the same room as the living room. It's not a good place to have because my mom's walking through. People are walking through. If someone's coming over, they're going to be talking while we're sitting next to them at the table trying to play D&D. Now, they're going to get caught up in the conversation that my mom's having, and I'm going to get up as the DM, or as a player, get caught up in the conversations that person's having, depending on if they're talking on the phone, talking to someone outside, talking to someone inside, and you can't just do that. And another thing is you always have the players bring their food. And you tell them it's off limits to go in my kitchen. Because food, I've learned out, is the biggest distraction. Because they're always looking for food, constantly looking for food. Because you want something to munch on and snack on while you're playing D&D. We all know that. Now, what I'm saying is, my party has recently started going to our mall where we have a hobby shop. And usually the owner lets us play in there. And she's a nice place, so it's really nice. There's not all the distractions. It's just us. It's just her and us. And in the back room, it's kind of like in a back room. We don't really see the customers, so there's no one to really talk to. So it's completely cut off from everything. Plus, usually they do bring their food because no one has money to buy food court food. You know what I'm saying? And, everybody brings their Mountain Dew, everything like that. So, that's pretty much a good idea. You want to stay away from all these little tiny distractions that, aren't really gonna help you at all with players paying attention to what you're doing. Now, some other things that I thought for players to really get tuned into the story is break your campaign up into chapters or segments or episodes, whatever you want to do, and have that person, for every single episode, they mark off a section on their piece of paper. Every single time there's a different episode, section, chapter, whatnot. And they are the ones that have to keep track of the major points. Like, say, you found the whereabouts of a, of the guy, whoever it may be, an evil sorcerer or whatever. Say you find the whereabouts of this guy. I mean, that's a pivotal a pivotal role in the story. You want to write that down. So you have that person be like the, kind of like the table of contents. They have to write it down, they have to pay attention to what you're talking about, and they have to know what the story is. Another thing that I thought about doing, really thought about having it to where, kind of to where the, it's almost like a co-DMing type thing. Now it's kind of risky, because doing co-DMing personally is a bad idea to me. But if you sat down with each player and said, okay, certain situations, I want you to, give me a recommendation as to who you guys are going to meet in the bar. Who do you think would be in a place like this? Say you go to this, old rustic town, out in the wilderness, cut off from the rest of the world. No trade comes here. No nothing comes here. Barely anybody's here. Now you are here for like an ancient artifact or something. These people are, very in solitude. They don't talk to people that much. They don't see much of the outside world. They don't really know what's going on. Now, I think it'd be cool to have your players tell you what they would expect to see. Every single one of them, they say, oh, I would assume, or I would expect that this would be here, or this would be here. Now, that'd be kind of cool, because it'd make every single person they meet in that city a little bit more real. A little bit more real to them, because it applies to what they would think is in this city. Say, you're in this city, it's obviously, it's on the remote edges, it's cold, it's constantly snowing. You wouldn't see some guy, lightly dressed. You wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see some guy lightly armored. No, there's going to be these guys, big fur, big weapons, always drinking beer, all that crazy stuff. So, if you take those little tiny tidbits that those players throw out to you, that place is going to seem a little bit more real, and it's going to keep them a little bit more interested, because what they're showing out at you is what they're interested in, compared to like something that you're going to make up that wouldn't keep their interest so much. So hopefully that should keep them really interested. Now, what I know a lot of GMs, what they do is they don't really like think of the little things. Now, if you're going into a bar in real life, every single person in that bar is going to have a story. They're going to have kids, they're going to have parents, they're going to have someone that has died in their family, someone they're mourning over, someone they love, stuff that they've done in their life. And I think it's very lazy of DMs to say, oh yeah, there's just this bartender. No, you got to change it up a little bit. You got to say, oh, this is the bartender and his name. You don't just say, oh, there's just some bartender. No, you have to actually think of a quick name, look around the room, find an object that looks like it'd be a good name, and give the bartender a name. Now, you also have to make him fit the scenario. Not all here we go. A lot of DMs make every single bartender the same way. They're not going to be the same way. Some of them aren't going to hand you out just ale complimentary on the city because you're visitors. Some of them are going to be money crunching, they're going to want your money. Now a lot of people just because you're visiting, they give you an ale. But that's like every single tavern or whatever you go to. It's not going to be like that. Plus, there might not always be a bartender. It just might be a little place, like a community place. So what I'm trying to say is you got to make it more realistic, as if you were to get up right now, get in your car, and drive away and go to a bar or go to a restaurant. Every single person, that is going to happen. Make something every single time they go to a bar or a like a temple, anything like that. There's got to be something unique that that character is going to remember from that temple or from that bar or from that house or from the the stables or anything like that. There's got to be something that their character and everybody's character remembers. Now, if you're not crunched for time in all these situations, like when the party goes to a new town, you want to take time in that town. You want to explain how much this is going to keep them interested because it's real. It's going to tell you. They even have guides in there. They're going to tell you how big it is, if it's a village, city, town. They all have different sizes, all different populations, all different people. You don't just tell them, well, here's this city, this is what it looks like. No. You explain what the surrounding area is. There's lakes, forests, what these lakes and forests are, what is in these lakes and forests, if there's any aberrant beasts, any abominations, or if it's just simply, oh, there's a special kind of deer, or a special kind of squirrel, or boar. You never know. Anything like that makes the scenario look real. Now, the simple things is, oh, the stone is made of adamantium. The stone wall, it's a stone wall. It's a heavy stone wall. It's a big stone wall. There is no wall. It's a wooden palisade. Stuff like that. It's going to tell you the defense of the city. How alert are the guards? If they see someone getting robbed in the background, someone getting mugged, someone getting beat up, are they really going to stop it? Or is the security so hardy you can't get away with anything? Or are these people so high in morale that they would never even dream of thinking about letting this happen? I have to move my computer. It's overheating. Anyway, so you discuss the weather patterns. Now, I know there's some other things in this book that they discuss about cities. I have a bookmark here, if you can give me a second. Yeah, that's another thing. Okay, things you find in this city. Not every city is going to have an armor. Not every city is going to have we'll just call it a grocery store, even though obviously that doesn't exist. Not every place is going to have an inn. Maybe sometimes the city isn't going to want you in their city. Sometimes you have to camp out in the outskirts of the city, still protected by the guard, but you still have to. They're not welcome to outsiders. The city guard might think it might stir up, some attention or stir up some rioting, anything, or stir up some fear, anything like that. And if you guys come in all dressed up as big bad heroes with epic armor, not everybody in the world looks like that. Not every single D&D campaign is going to be like an RPG where every single person is dressed up. It's not like you're either super poor or you're super adventurous. No, it's not like that. There's going to be rich people, poor people, fat people, skinny people, all different types of things. This is going to make all of this seem more realistic. Now, another thing that's going to make cities more realistic and environments more realistic, make them work as they were realistic. Make there be an economic system. There's not always going to be everything you want to find. Sometimes trading shops, they don't get their stuff because a caravan has been sacked, stuff like that. There's not always going to be these readily available items. If your players want a certain thing that you think is higher level than them, or you think you want to make them work a little bit more for it, just say the city doesn't have this item. There's reasons why the city wouldn't have this item, because there's been, just make up a story, there's been, like I said, pillages out in the east or in the west, or whatever you want to say. Or sometimes it's more dangerous, or because it's wintertime, they've shut down trade between these places. Anything like that. And another thing, as in making them work well, is make sure there's services like a real city would. There's sewers, there's aqueducts, there's things that make this city run, that make it real. Anyway, before I go any further, I'm going to quit this video, and I'm going to probably pick it up again on the next one. So, see ya.